You are listening to the Bell Ringers podcast on Philly Sports Reports, brought to you by SeatGeek. Here are your hosts, Colin Daly and Benjamin Goldstein.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bell Ringers podcast. Colin Daly here alongside Benjamin Goldstein. And for the first time in 2024 on a Bell Ringers podcast, we are discussing confirmed playoff baseball. Ben, it is an amazing feeling knowing that our Phillies are just a few days away from being on the national stage in the national pastime. I am excited. I can't speak for you, but I think I can speak for you, if you know what I mean.
I must say,
What's happening? Like, this doesn't even feel real right now.
yeah, I mean,
But
the
the Phillies won the
are,
National League East.
yeah.
What's going on?
So the
Somebody fill me in.
Phillies NLDS champs, first time since 2011. I was 2 when they last won the NL East.
Yeah, 3.
I guess, yeah, you were 3 because you're September, I'm October. So, and then 95 and 67 is their final record, second best record in the MLB behind the Dodgers. They stay loose and sexy, like my shirt says. First time in a long time. It took them a couple days to get there, but they did it. And we move forward. Regular season's over. Job ain't finished, as they said multiple times. And John Middleton, he wants his effing trophy back.
As he should, right?
As he should.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Phillies. I mean, there's not much to complain about right now. The finish of the season was mediocre, but they won 95 games. So I don't know if you can ask for too much there. And I think they're coming into the playoffs well rested. You know, they gave their starters, I'd say, a fair amount of rest time in the last week and a half of the season. I am glad they did not do the overhaul full bench game. But every day they tried to take out 1-2 starters to just get them off their feet. We were lucky enough to see Nick Castellanos play a full 162 games. He was one of only a few players to do that this year.
He was the first Philly to start 162 games since MVP Jimmy Rollins in 2007. I believe Cesar Hernandez played 162 in 2018 or 2017 or something, but he did not start.
Those are the times, weren't they?
Those were the times. Ryan Howard, I believe, did it in 2009, but he didn't start every game. Rollins started every game. Castellanos also started every game. So it was cool. Good for him. Cool stuff. You don't see that a lot anymore, so it's cool when it happens.
No, you don't. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I know I've said it a couple times now, but there's nothing else that can go through my head. I'm hungry for this playoff baseball. The atmosphere that Citizens Bank Park offers in October is second to none. So we're bound to have a great month here, Ben. You get to celebrate your birthday. The Phillies get to go for another trophy. They're third in the organization's history. These are exciting times.
Hopefully, they gotta get through this week first, which is going to. It's already feeling like a long week, and it's only Tuesday.
Right.
But I have concerns.
You do. That's fair.
The starting pitching at the end of the season was not the most encouraging. Ranger Suarez did not have a good start to end his season. Zach Wheeler was dominant to the end. Aaron Nola had a good last start. Christopher Sanchez, I don't remember his last start. I think it was okay.
He was good, yeah. He's been okay.
And then
he's done his job.
Yeah, Ranger's been scary. Jeff Hoffman had a bad last outing. A few other guys in the bullpen had a bad last outing. And this lineup is, they're striking out all the time. Like they struck out 16 times back-to-back nights in Milwaukee 2 weeks ago. Like we can't forget about that. They struggled in New York. They, you can't completely throw things away that have happened this season, like towards the end, because this is how you're going in. Look at the Mets. They're going in, the hottest team of baseball, and won a thriller over the Braves to get in, and just won another big game over the Brewers to take game one. Like, it's all about how you're going into the postseason. We've learned it in the past. If you're going in hot, like the 22 Phils, you're going to win a pennant. But if you're going in slow and then you have this week off to sit with it, you don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see. This week off is huge because they are banged up. It gets guys rest. It gets their starting pitching in order. So I mean, I'm excited. Hopefully we'll talk about who we're going to play next or in a little bit, but that's up in the air, and I'm kind of worried about it a little bit.
Yeah. Ben, I agree to an extent, but you have to remember that when the playoffs start, it's kind of like a hard reset for everybody. The stat lines go back to zeros. The innings reset, and it's like what I love about playoff baseball is because of that, you kind of have to reassert yourself as the guy if you're in the bullpen, as the guy that deserves to have the high leverage situation. If you're in the lineup, you need to reassert yourself as the 3-hole hitter, the best hitter on the team. If you're a starting pitcher, you need to reassert yourself as the ace. So I think there's a little bit of that intra-competitive spirit that comes out during postseason baseball. And I also think you can't glance over the fact that you mentioned if you go in slow like the Phillies did last season, don't just ignore that they beat the Marlins in a wild card series, who were a decent team last year, and then the 100-plus win Braves they took down in the NLDS, and they got themselves to the championship of their league. So I don't necessarily think that the vibes toward the end of the season are a direct translation to how they perform in the postseason. But I mean, I definitely think that there could be an added bonus if they had performed really well at the end of the regular season. So I definitely wouldn't say that they're coming in at a disadvantage because of that. And I
No,
know we're
I
going to
don't think
discuss
it's a
this later in
I
the
don't think it's a
episode.
disadvantage.
No,
I just think, if you're coming in with a head full of steam, you're gonna ride it. Phillies aren't riding much,
right.
which is also why this week's kind of has its negatives. Like it's a hard stop for 5 days. But hopefully the Phillies can bounce back from that
Right.
healthy and do what the Astros
Yeah,
did in 22. They won the
I
World Series.
I think the point that I'm trying to make is that there's so much emotion involved in the playoffs and in playoff baseball that any emotions you were feeling, that they felt on September 30th, or yeah, that yesterday, no, September 29th. Any emotion they felt on September 29th, by the time October 5th rolls around, between the crowd and the opponents and the scouting reports they're going to get that are going to be, double the amount of pages they're used to because the playoffs, those are the types of things, like the emotions from that, I think are just going to kind of overshadow or surpass anything that's left over from the regular season. So I really do think the Phillies are in a good spot right now. I think they match up well with either the Mets or Brewers. We'll talk about that later, though. But I do, and I know we're going to discuss this later. I think if there's anything that's threatening to the Phillies right now, it is that bye week. But before we get too far into the playoff scope, let's look back at the regular season.
I do want to quickly, before we jump
Oh,
to
go
this
ahead.
next segment, the Phillies celebrated pretty hard their NLDS championship. Not as hard as they celebrated some stuff in these past years, but it was a pretty hard celebration for winning the National League East. A lot of people were not happy about it. Do you care at all?
Well, you're asking the wrong person that question because that's not really my thing. But no, not really. Like they won the East. Why? Why not?
Well, I think a lot of people's argument was that they were still at that point trying to get the bye, trying to get the 1 seed, which nobody cared about the 1 seed. Let's be honest here. The 1 seed doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Except if you want home field advantage for one series against a team that isn't even going to get there, But
No, I'm okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm okay.
it's the first time you've won the NL East since 2011. Why wouldn't you celebrate? It's so much harder to win a division in the MLB than it is in any other league in the world, maybe. Why not? Losing one game isn't going to be in the world. You're not going to fall back winning in the bye. And they did it. They got the bye pretty in 2 days after. They lost the next game, and then won the one after that and got the bye. So I mean, whatever. People just people like to come up with a story. And this was
Yeah,
about
you're
that.
totally right. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the mix?
Oh, on like the music?
Yeah.
Love it.
It was pretty fire.
It was. I was trying to find it on Garrett Stubbs' Spotify account.
It's not on Spotify. It's YouTube, and I forget what else they have it on, but it's on the web. It's on phillysportsreports.com. Go check it out.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, what do we got
I just realized something, Ben. I picked the wrong cup for today. That's embarrassing right there.
That's unfortunate.
Luckily, it's empty, so I have to pick that up again. Well, Ben, we're going to discuss some regular season awards, take a look back at who performed, who didn't during our 162 game haul. Would you like to do the honor and start for us today? Or should we go one by one? Like you give me your first person, and
Yeah, so we'll start with we're starting with the most improved player award. I wouldn't say a most improved, but I would say, biggest jump award is kind of I think a better phrase. And I am going with the third baseman, Alec Bohm. You look at 2023, he played less games this season, but he was also injured. But his slash line this year, 280, 332, 448 with a 779 OPS. Last season, 274, 327, 437 with a 795 OPS. This season, he had less homers, but the same amount of RBIs, which is kind of shocking. He did have
because he hit for a better average, right? Put more balls in play.
Yeah, he did.
More hits with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, so he had this season 44 doubles. Last season 31. Had 2 triples this year. 15 homers. Just like a huge year for Bohm. Got so many more hits. Got on base. Drove in a crap ton of runners. Started the All-Star game. We've been looking for him to take a jump. And he did. He did that this year. And after a horrible postseason last year, imagine if he can turn it around. The Phillies were missing like a bat last year in those final few games. If they could have gotten something from Bohm, it would have been huge. Now, hopefully they're going to get it. And they got an all-star Alec Bohm that's going up for all MLB.
Yeah, I think he was a lot more of a well-rounded player this year, checking off more boxes, right? He had the RBIs, he had the power. We saw him do pretty well in the home run derby.
Forgot he was
but
even
his
in
defense, I know. His defense was there. He actually, and like you mentioned, the 2 triples, maybe there's some speed developing. But I think he was also a lot more level-headed this year too. He seemed to have a little bit more control over his game. And I think that makes a huge difference for young guys like him. So just to mix I also chose Alec Bohm for my most improved player. Now I'm looking at his list. I really only think there could be potentially 2 where you have different people. So just to spice it up a little bit, I think another guy you could look at for this is Ryan Kirkering. A very, very good season from him. And it wasn't that he wasn't good last year. In that small sample size, I think his numbers were actually better. I'd have to pull them up and look. But
I think he only pitched like big 3 or 4 appearances.
Well, right, yeah. So it wasn't a lot, and he was disgusting in those 3 or 4 appearances. And I won't lie, Kirkering had some road bumps. He made some mistakes, but he was really, really good. From an overview or broad standpoint, he was excellent, and he's the staple in the Phillies bullpen. He will continue to be that staple in the bullpen. For however long the Phillies playoff run lasts. So I'm really excited to see what kind of player he turns into. But I think staying healthy, playing, I guess I can't say the full 162, but being healthy for the full 162 and getting consistent reps in the bullpen, consistent effective reps out of the bullpen is huge for the Phillies. So I think he could also be right up there with Bohm.
Yeah, I think
I guess we'll go to.
All right, really quick on Orion. I feel like every close 7th inning, he was in that game, and he delivered every single time. Big 7th, 8th inning guy, and he delivered almost every time. The few times he didn't come through were pretty ugly. I must say, it was pretty ugly.
Yes, they were. But, that was kind of what I was alluding to with the road bumps.
Yeah, when his bumps are bumpy, but when he's cruising, it's full steam ahead. So
I'll say I had a baseball game a few days ago. That parking lot I was in had the worst speed bumps ever. I was crawling, Ben. It was like I was doing like 2 miles per hour. I went over this speed bump. I shot up out of my seat. It was terrible. That's a sidebar. per usual
All right,
from me.
reliever of the year. I
Can
actually
we just
thought
say
about
it together on 3?
I
No,
thought
you
about it.
thought about
I thought about Orion Kerkering, but
okay.
3, 2, 1. Jeff
Jeff
Hoffman.
Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
2.17 ERA in 68 games, 10 saves, 66 innings, 89 strikeouts, a .96 WHIP. Like the guy was he was that dude this season, and it's crazy because just last year he was pitching sim games against Harper, and Harper was like, "Yo, why is this guy not on the team?" And now he's become the best reliever on the Phillies. Like it's an insane story, and it's so awesome. And I am like, if anyone I'm proud of on this Phillies team,
Yeah.
it's Jeff Hoffman.
No, I'm with you. He was really good this year. I mean, his fastball, we see him pump it up in the high 90s. He didn't get a lot of hard contact. He got tons of swings and misses. He limited the walks. I mean, for a guy who has great stuff, he puts his slider rarely in the strike zone, which is a positive thing, and throws, that hard with, that much chase. He was in the 81st percentile in walk rate. I mean, that is really incredible. The way you're able to command your fastball when you're dropping your slider out of the zone, using that splitter out of the zone, being able to get the four seamer and the sinker into that tiny little box. I mean, that there is an art. Um, that's beyond impressive from Hoffman.
He was beyond impressive all year. All right, Cy Young. Do we both have a?
Yeah.
We both have
The
Zach
Cy
Wheeler.
Young.
Yeah, Zach Wheeler. I mean,
No, he's not the Cy Young.
ooh, we're gonna talk about that. I mean, Wheeler's regular season, 16-7, 2.57 ERA in 32 games, 200 innings exactly, 224 strikeouts, a .96 WHIP.
He was lights out.
Yeah, I mean, all season, front to end, and he finished strong as well. The numbers are
Yeah.
there. If you watch the video, it's there. Like, I don't think he had really one bad start all year.
No. And even if he had a few bad ones sprinkled in there, nothing built up, nothing compounded. He was able to bounce back right away, and that's what made him so effective, so trustworthy. Because Zach had a bad start, means we're gonna get 5 good ones in a row, right? That's just the way he operates, the way that he works, and it's huge for the Phillies. It'll be huge in the postseason. Do you think he's the Cy Young winner?
I'm gonna get to that. Who's your MVP?
Bryce Harper.
Okay.
Who's your MVP?
My MVP is Zach Wheeler. Where would the Phillies be without Zach Wheeler every fifth day? Like if you look at down the stretch, you didn't get many good starts from Ranger. Aaron Nola was iffy. Christopher Sanchez is only good at home. You had a horrible fifth spot that rotated through things. But you always had Zach Wheeler. You always had one guy you could rely on. And I have him and Chris Sale's stats up. Sale's WAR is better by 0.1. He has a 6.2. Wheeler's 6.1. Wheeler leads in games in starts and innings pitched by a wide margin. Wheeler started 32 games. Sale started 29. 200 innings for Wheeler. 177.2 for Chris Sale. And I think Chris Sale would have won Cy Young if he was able to start game 2 of that doubleheader against the Mets, but he was not able to because of an injury. If he started that game and went on and dominated, he's the Cy Young, wrapped up, case closed. But he wasn't able to go out, which clears my way for Wheeler. Sale's record was better. The ERA was pretty close. Sale 2.38, Wheeler 2.57. ERA plus, I don't even know what that means. Sale had one more strikeout. His strikeout percentage was higher. A lot less walks. But, I mean, when I'm looking at this, the WAR is valued high. It's very close. And the innings pitched in Cy Young is valued very high. And Wheeler's has so many more innings than Chris Sale, which I think innings pitched is a top 2 most important stat for starting pitchers. And Wheeler has 200. Sale doesn't even have a 180. So my Cy Young is Zach Wheeler. From his start to his end, it was dominant throughout the whole thing. While Chris Sale is a pretty awesome story, I'm giving it to Wheeler.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Sale. I'm sorry, I'm not sure that Wheeler is going to get the Cy Young. But I totally agree with the idea about the innings pitched. Innings pitched is huge, and if I had to make a case for Wheeler to get the Cy Young, that is the first place I would go. But I think Sale was too dominant this year, despite the innings pitched, um,
But I
to
mean, I
not
think
get the
you
Cy
also
Young
like
award.
Cy Young, you can kind of look at it like MVP. Like I obviously the Braves had so many injuries this season, but the Phillies had the second best record in the MLB and won their first NLE since 2011. And a lot of those games were off of Zach Wheeler's dominance.
That's fair. Well, then I have a question for you. How did Blake Snell win a Cy Young award? Because he barely pitches at all. He's like 5-0.
Because I'm going to tell you one thing. The Cy Young voting is so ridiculous, and all the voting in MLB is ridiculous. So Zach Wheeler's probably not going to win the Cy Young because of the voting being ridiculous. But if you're like seriously looking at this and seriously voting, I would go with Wheeler unbiasedly. But I mean, in the past, things are fraught. So
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a fair point. All right, who is your Harper? I don't have much to say about this. Harper got glanced over the whole season because his slash line didn't meet up to his, you know, career numbers, and I mean he was still the best player on offense on the team. If I wanted somebody up in a big spot right now, I would want to see Bryce Harper.
yeah, and I mean,
It's
30
as simple as that.
homers. He hovered around 300 for the majority of the season, was the player of the month in May and June. Um, like his numbers may not have been crazy, but he had kind of a different approach. Like he hit for average a lot this year because he had a very long time where he wasn't hitting homers, but he was hitting for
Yeah,
average.
and I mean to put this into perspective, he had a higher OPS than he did in 2022, and his OPS was only 2 points lower than it was last year. His slugging percentage was actually higher by 26 points. Um, it was a Bryce Harper-esque season. I think it was a little bit more inconsistent than we're used to seeing, because of how good he was in the beginning of the year. Then his late season struggles, I think, kind of tarnished that viewpoint. But Bryce Harper is still Bryce Harper. He's going to be great in the playoffs. He had great moments. He will have more great moments, and he's forever and always my MVP. All right, I'm curious to see what you're going to answer for this question. Who disappointed you the most?
All right, most disappointing. I'm going Taijuan Walker. Had the hopes, wanted to believe in him so much, and
That
just
didn't even
never
cross my
gave
mind. That's
it
hilarious.
just never gave me a reason to believe. 7.10 ERA in 15 starts. What his whip was 1.72. Like did so much crap talking last year about not being on the postseason roster and went out and was the worst starting pitcher in baseball. So like he got a chance at the end
Oh
of the
my
year
god.
got a chance in the end of the season in New York to clinch a postseason spot and was absolutely terrible. Like give me a reason to you've given me so many times to give me a reason to believe, and you just failed every time. So like I don't know what you want me to tell you. Taijuan Walker is like the worst. Ended up like being the worst pitcher in baseball this year. So Taijuan Walker is my most disappointed.
I surrender. You won that one by forever. I don't know how I forgot about Walker. It's probably because I think about him too much. When a rational question comes up, his name just goes out of my head, which is probably a good thing. Um, by the way, Taiwan Walker in my English class is a very common topic that's brought up. Um, my English teacher, who is 10 out of 10, amazing, is a Phillies fan, and her favorite thing to talk about how much Taiwan Walker is terrible. We actually she was teaching us how to do like write our own MLA citations,
Ugh.
and she did the article that she was citing was Philly Sports Reports why Taiwan Walker why Taiwan Walker should win the Cy Young um by Colin Daly
Wow.
was the article that we use as our class example.
There you go.
That article will never be published because you are correct. He was the most disappointing player. My answer is a little bit personal here. I said Johan Rojas because I was like, Alex Carr and I were like the number one Johan Rojas believers. Like I would stand on top of Mount Everest and defend Johan Rojas. I would also do it in the deepest depths of the universe. I don't know why. I think he has great potential, but he just is not a major league hitter. And honestly, his defense, I'm gonna regret this, is slightly overrated. He just misreads a lot of so all of those things of like the catch probabilities are great numbers. But what that factors in is his route to the ball. And that is like often very, very bad. Like he'll like take 3 steps in, then back up and make a diving play. And the diving play had a very low catch probability, but the ball that was actually hit could have been caught without diving. He just like seems to not read the ball very well sometimes. Unfortunately, I think Johan Rojas is not going to get too many more opportunities, especially if he struggles in the postseason. I think the Phillies will look elsewhere during the offseason, but I was really hoping Rojas would step up. That did not happen, and I'm sad about that.
I mean, Rojas, like, with runners in scoring positions, average was, like, pretty good. Like, he was hitting, like, around 300 runners in scoring positions. So, I mean, wasn't horrible. Like, I don't think he was definitely not the most disappointing. Like, you knew what you were going to get at the plate.
Like, his OPS was barely over 600.
All right, well,
his expected slugging percentage was in the bottom 1%.
All right, well,
his average exit velocity was in the bottom 5%. Barrel percentage, bottom 4%.
He's pretty brutal.
Percentage,
he's pretty
bottom
brutal.
6%. Chase percentage, bottom 10%. And you'd think if he can't hit it, at least stand up there and walk. No, his walk percentage, bottom 3%. Bottom 3%. 97% of the league was better at standing still and not taking the bat off the shoulder. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at that. I can walk a lot. The pictures I face aren't very good. Today I walked. It was great.
There you go.
I didn't have to do anything. I didn't swing once.
Colin's got good plate
discipline. 4 pitches, 4 balls. That walk percentage right there, 100%.
That's I mean, Austin Hayes is going to be playing in this postseason in left field. Marsh, which is whatever. Marsh and Rojas.
I love Marsh.
Marsh and Rojas will platoon in center field because Marsh literally cannot hit lefty to save his life. Will Weston Wilson maybe
did at the end of the season?
Will Weston Wilson maybe get some time out there? Probably. Could you see Cody Clemens out there? Maybe. We'll see what happens.
What about Buddy the Elf?
I don't know. We'll see. All right. Also, most disappointing, quick shout out to Connor Brogdon for his 1 week of service. I actually saw the video of his grand slam in the top of the 9th a few days ago, back in April.
Wait, what?
Remember he gave up the grand slam to the Reds, like the fourth game of the season to lose the game? Yeah, so I
thought you meant like he hit a grand slam.
No.
Please, get out of here.
So
if that's the case.
Shout out Connor Brogdon for your services. All right, let's shift into postseason stuff. But before we do that, I want to talk about SeatGeek, the sponsor of this show. They're the best. Phillies tickets. They're pretty flippin' expensive, Colin, already.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous. So if you want to save some money, buy your tickets at SeatGeek. Use the link in the description. Use code Phillies Sports Report. PHILLYSPORTSREPORT. What are we doing, Colin?
We're holding the S. We're smacking it out of here. We're volleyball serving the S to the other side of the room because we don't want it. That was intense.
Save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring. Save some money on Phillies tickets. They're pretty pricey this postseason. I think the cheapest was like $300 for standing room. It's upside down.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Cheapest was like
is that how we got the tickets to this game?
I mean, that was in June, but you could have used SeatGeek and get some tickets to that game back on June 1st, the day that Ranger Suarez season went to crap.
I don't even want to talk about that.
So
we'd have 100 wins right now. Mark my words.
Probably. Thank you to SeatGeek. Link in the description. to save $20 off. They're the best. They've sponsored every single show almost. So good for them. Thank you to them. Let's shift into the postseason. Phillies are in their bye week. So are the Eagles.
They are.
So no Philly sports this week until Saturday. How awesome is that?
What are we gonna do? We're unemployed.
All right. So they had a mandatory workout on Tuesday. They were all at the bank today. Tomorrow or Wednesday, they're having a sim game. They drafted teams. They had their captains, which is like the most awesome thing I've ever heard in my life. Spencer
Who are the
Turnbull's
captains? Do we know?
I don't know. Dombrowski just said they were captains. I didn't hear
out.
the captains were. There's no media there tomorrow. No media there tomorrow. They're going to have pumping crowd noise, walk-up music, and the scoreboard will be working. So they're going to try to make this as normal as possible. Kind of gives 2020 vibes a little bit. They're going to try and pitch Spencer Turnbull 2 to 3 innings. So we'll see how that goes. And the guys have a wager on the game. Question. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
What time is the sim game happening tomorrow? We don't know, do we?
No release time. They're keeping it so on the DL.
I think we need to reunite not like the group, but the concept of the original Pandemic crew.
We're going
outside the gates. The radio won't really work, right? But because there's nothing to listen to.
I mean, we need some highlight. We need those highlighters. We need the air horns.
Yeah. Too bad Aaron Boone's not here.
What a time that was. Aaron Boone was complaining about the fans that aren't even in the stadium. That was so ridiculous.
I love how you remember when he pointed out there? He was pointing to nobody.
Yeah.
He's pointing to nobody. They're behind the gates. They have no idea they're being pointed to. He can't even see anybody. That's like pointing and saying, hey, that person over there is doing something bad. I'm sure there's someone in that general direction that's like killing someone right now, right? But like, come on. Seriously? What a dumb we can't do podcasts at 10:32 at night. This is when I'm like off the rails. Like who does that? It's an air horn. You're in Philadelphia. There's loud noises. There's trains, there's buses, there's car crashes, there's shootings. Like, come on now. What's going on? Aaron Boone, calm down. That really bothered me. I don't know why. I was so angered by that. But I digress.
Karen Boone.
Yeah.
They had the sign out there, Karen Boone.
Too appropriate. Too appropriate.
All right. So they're gonna do that, and then Thursday there's like an optional workout. Friday's a day off, I believe, and then Saturday they play in the game.
Wow, we're here.
Will this
That's crazy.
Be pro or yay or nay the bye? Kind of is basically what I'm asking.
In this case, I didn't think I'd say this, but indifferent. Vibes at the end of the season weren't great. They wear off, built up some anticipation. I mean, excuse me. Jeez. Still a bit under the weather here. I think that building up some of that anticipation is good for this group. I mean, they're kind of like a bunch of like preschool kids too.
I mean, they're literally drafting. They literally had a draft for a sim game or putting money on it.
So I feel like they would kind of thrive off of that, like the anticipation, the excitement, like almost a little bit of that like preemptive stress. So I think it's very fitting for them. The Braves to me feel like more of a like an adult men's league where they're just like in it for whatever cash out there might be. So for the Braves, I can understand why they might not be a big fan of the bye week because they're kind of just like business as usual. Phillies bring a little bit more into it, and I appreciate that.
You think they're putting money on this sim game in honor of the late Pete Rose?
Is it too soon? It might be too soon.
Pete Rose smiling down.
Or is it ever too soon? I don't think it's ever too soon. Too soon, overrated. Never too soon.
Rest in peace, Pete Rose. Great ball player, and we're going to end it at that. All right.
Good.
The Phillies will play the winner of the Mets-Brewers wild card series. The Mets won Game 1, 8-4. Games 1 and 2 of the National League Division Series will be at 4:08 on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday will be on Fox. Sunday will be on FS1. Colin, would you rather the New York Mets or the Milwaukee Brewers? Would you rather
answer first?
The heated rival New York Mets, who the Phillies have never played in the postseason before, or Rhys Hoskins and the Milwaukee Brewers?
I need you to answer first. I have not decided yet.
I'm picking the Brewers.
Okay.
The Mets, a team that is playing with nothing to lose scares me. And that is what the Mets are. The Mets remind me of the 2022 Phillies.
Yeah.
Playing for each other, never expected to be there, had a horrible start, rallied at the end, got in on like the last day, and they went out in Milwaukee, 1-8-4. I think they scored like all their runs late. They got 5 in the 5th, and that was it. But like they're just like a team that like is fun. Like Francisco Lindor, like Jose Iglesias has been great.
OMG.
Oh my God. I can't stand that song.
I
And
can't
they
either.
got pretty good pitching. Like the Mets pitching puts very well against the Phillies. And I think the Brewers are more beatable than the Mets. I also can't stand Mets fans. I don't want them in the ballpark.
Well, there's two sides to this question. You mentioned both of them. One, the idea of Rhys Hoskins returning to Citizens Bank Park. I shouldn't say returning. That implies that he wasn't here before. Returning to Citizens Bank Park for, I guess it would be a fourth time. He played
For a
3
playoff
games here. Yeah, for a playoff game with
that
the like full crowds, rally towels, cheering everyone at the top of their lungs. Like, I thrive off of that. That would be like that for me. Like watching that would be like putting an oxygen mask on.
I might
It's like
cry.
effortless joy. Yeah,
I would.
I need that.
If he like I love Rhys Hoskins. Like he restored faith in the Phillies for so many people. Like he's gonna go up there wearing the opposing team jersey in Red October,
Ugh.
and it's like you want to root for the guy, but it's like, oh man, like I hate you. We gotta hate him. Like it's like
that would be
very
that would be
difficult.
something.
It's going to be very difficult to do if it happens. Mets are easy.
Well, so when I made my notes for the episode here, I wrote down Mets or Brewers as our fourth topic for the episode. I circled the Mets because they were my initial answer, and I'm looking back on this, and I'm realizing it's just because I'm like a sinister individual. The Mets, like having us play the Mets is like so much better for the plot. Like the Mets fans hear the chaos, the arguments, the fights, the like stare downs that would definitely ensue if the Mets were here. The like comments from the players in post game interviews, like I'm totally in all of this for the plot. Like why else would I be here? So I'm totally choosing the Mets. Because the Brewers is like sad and heartfelt, and that's like fun for a little bit. And like I'd watch Rhys Hoskins at bat, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's a little bit emotional." And then after his at bat, I would just move on with my life. But like if we play the Mets, the drama will ensue for the entirety of the 5 games. Like that would be amazing. So I realize I'm just like not a good person.
I will not be able to handle a Phillies Mets playoffs. Like it just won't happen. Like it just like feels like a thing that should not happen, but like it's probably going to happen. I don't know what's better though. The Mets blowing a 1-0 lead in the wild card. We only need 2 wins, or if they advance and the Phillies just absolutely murder them. Like I don't know which one's better, but I don't know. We'll see. I think the Brewers are an easier team to play, but if the Phillies have everything clicking, we know that it's going to work in October. So this is also be the first time they've had home field advantage in the NLDS since 2011, which is
Really,
yeah.
I didn't know that. It's interesting
because 22 they were the 6th seed, and then they played the Braves last year.
Yeah. Wow, I'll tell you that Mets Brewers game was an interesting one today. I'm just looking back. I didn't get a chance to watch it. So the Brewers scored first. They're up 2-0. Mets led 3-2. And then the Brewers led 4-3. And the Mets score 5 in the 5th. And then no runs from there. From the bottom of the 5th on. It's an 8-4 final. Mets scored 8 runs on only 7 hits.
Another thing, I don't want someone dressing up as Grimace at Citizens Bank Park. I don't want anything purple in the ballpark. Like that can't happen. Like no Grimace.
See, this is where you and I differ. I totally
want Grimace.
That Grimace is not making it out of Citizens Bank alive, and I'm there for that. Like I'm totally here for it. Bring it on, man.
We're throwing the cheese fries and the cheesesteak.
I want the Schwarburger thrown at him. I want that man to eat a Schwarburger. Unintentionally eat a Schwarburger. The 2.0 with the egg. Egg to the face. He's going to get egged.
Happy birthday, Gwynmas.
Yeah, no. Happy Death Day. All right.
Let's wild card predictions. We can't preview anything, so let's preview the wild card. Royals, the Kansas City Royals and the Baltimore Orioles. The Royals have a 1-0 lead over Baltimore with a 1-0 win today. What an exciting game. Will the Royals finish it out, or will the Orioles force game 3, and who's going to win
it? Well, I'll tell you. I think it's going to be Kansas City, and it's just because of their pitching. That's really it for me. I think Seth Lugo can outduel Zach Eflin. I mean, he was great this year. I think the Royals are built very well for a wild card series. I don't think they make it past the wild card round, though.
So you have Royals in 2?
I do.
I have Royals in 3. I think the Orioles get 1 because they're not getting swept at home. But I think Kansas City will end up winning the thing, which is awesome. And then Detroit and Houston. Detroit won game 1 today, got very close. They ended up winning 3-1, got tight in the end. Will the Astros come back? Or will this amazing Detroit story continue?
I dislike the Astros, so they'll probably come back. It's a shame. Really is a shame.
The Astros were always destined to win this in 3.
Yeah.
Although if the Tigers if we can get the Detroit Tigers and the Kansas City Royals advancing, that would be the greatest thing that ever happened. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I feel that. All right, what about Mets Brewers?
Mets Brewers. The Mets are so due to Met. They're so due.
No, yeah, they totally are.
So give me Brewers in 3. Why not? Let's do it. And who else do the Mets have to pitch after Severino?
Well, they have Manaea going on game 2.
All right, Manaea's been great for them, but I don't know.
Yeah, and Milwaukee has Montas, who is no bueno. But on Thursday, I don't know if they haven't announced starters yet. Yeah, I guess that would be.
Yeah,
that would still be up in the air. But yeah. Unfortunately, I think the Mets they'll win this one. Then they'll Met against us, which is nice.
In 2 or 3?
Oh, yeah. 3.
All right.
Wait, yeah, 3.
And then finally, we have Braves who are just the SpongeBob meme of the guy who's in the full body cast?
No, I'm not really a SpongeBobber, unfortunately.
All right. Well, if you saw it, you probably know it. He's in a full body cast. He was like, I injured every part of my body or something.
Sounds painful.
That's basically the Braves. Everybody's hurt.
Yeah.
And the Padres, who are the best team in baseball, I don't know. The Padres are up 3-0 right now in the 8th when we're recording this. They'll probably win when this is published. So Braves, Padres, assuming the Padres are up 1, doesn't matter. I still have the Padres in 2.
Yeah, I do as well.
I think that'll be the only.
They're good. They're good.
Is that how many teams fear you in the NL?
Two. Not the Padres.
Oh.
Phillies have always been successful against the Padres, so I probably should be afraid of them, but I'm not.
What are the other 2? Dodgers, Mets?
Correct. Dodgers have scary uniforms, so they could be really bad, and I think I'd still be afraid of the Dodgers. I also feel like if you could put 90-year-old Freddie Freeman up there, and I would be quaking in my boots. Freddie Freeman's a scary-looking individual. He's tall too, and that stance.
He's just really good at baseball.
when he does the like super knee bent stance, like the bend in his knees, I think is like so pronounced that it makes him. But like even when he does bend his knee, he still has like an average height. So I think it actually like makes him seem taller when he does that. That another weird thing of mine. But yeah, the Dodgers are like a forever scary team, and then the Mets just like
the Mets will Met and the Dodgers will do what they do.
Yeah, they're young, driven, and have no expectations.
I got Phillies, Padres, and the NLCS. Phillies winning the series. Moving on.
I hope you're right.
Moving on to face the Astros in the World Series. An NLCS rematch of 22, a World Series rematch of 22, and the Phillies win it.
I like the sound of that.
So that's all we got, Colin.
That's all we got, folks.
We'll see you Saturday morning. Game 1 of
Saturday
the NLDS.
Morning.
We'll see. We're going to break down the roster.
Live pregame show. Oh, no. Oh, yes, you're right. Podcast.
And make sure to
live pregame show.
Make sure to tune in. We got the live pregame shows are back.
Then somebody will have a preview written by one of our dedicated writers. And then a post-game recap, which I think I'm covering, but I'll have to
You're doing everything Saturday.
Am I?
Yeah.
It's my lucky Saturday.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys Saturday. Thank you for watching.
We will.
See ya. This has been the Bell Ringers podcast on Philly Sports Reports, brought to you by SeatGeek. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Philly Sports Reports wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow the podcast on X and PSR on all social media. Also, consider leaving a review. Catch Colin and Benjamin's writing on phillysportsreports.com, along with following both on X. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring the show.